It's nice to see you. You're looking handsome as ever. See, some people think I'm just looking at your thumbnail picture, but I'm also looking at you on the live stream, and you are extremely handsome in both places.
Well, to be clear, my thumbnail is actually a still image from my web setup, right? Like my web camera setup in my office, in my studio office. So you are essentially you're looking at a live version of the still image.
That's
So,
fair. I might go back. I think
but
I'm
I'll
going
take
to
the
go back.
compliment. I'm
Yeah,
not.
you
I'm
look
not.
good.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I'll take the compliment. How about that? I should just say thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, understanding. Everybody always says, "Oh, Tom looks so good." When I send out messages like, "Oh, if I've ever introduced you to somebody," they're always so intimidated because they say you look so good in when they catch you on video.
Well, thank you. I will. I will. I'm not good at at receiving compliments always, so I'm gonna try to practice being better at receiving compliments, and I will just say thank you. I
That's a good
appreciate
one
that.
because that we could have a whole nother room about that because sometimes I meet some friends that are people of faith, and I'm a person of faith, but sometimes they will say if somebody gives you like a gift and you don't accept it, you're taking their blessing away. So whether you're anybody that offers you a compliment or gives you a lollipop or brings sugar over to your house when you need it, you should accept that because they are giving you a blessing and it meant something to them. So you're working on that. That makes you a good person. Hey, John Jay, Simon, what's up? We were going to go down this route. Tom had this idea of how do we ask for help? And when we're asking for help, how come it's easier to ask some people for help and not other people? And then sometimes, like I could call, I called John Jay one time, and I'm like we had a conversation, and he was the easiest guy to talk to, gave me good advice, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, I could never ask this guy, but I feel like I could call him up and he'd be cool with it. So, Tom, where do you want to go with that and steer us down that path?
Yeah, man. So, and if anybody watching the live stream, if I'm looking away, it's just because I'm going through and pinging folks help get the room going. Um, but yeah, so we were talking about asking for help, and here's what I ran into. Right, I sort of ran into like a bit of a paradox, a bit of a conundrum because I have this sort of mantra that I try to live by, which is lead with value always, right? That I am always in everything I do, I always try to deliver more than I receive. I always try to lead with value first. And so the sort of question that I was struggling with, because I'm working on a book project and I have some sort of big goals professionally that I want to accomplish in the world. And I know I'm not going to be able to do those things on my own. It's going to require me to ask for help. And so the question became, if I want to stay true to this mantra, this value that I have of leading with value always, how do I ask for help but also give value first? And so I kind of came up with this solution, and the solution is that value comes, in my mind, in a lot of different forms, right? Value is all about what you're giving to what the person receiving it deems valuable, right? And so, to me, I think the way to get around the obvious contradiction of leading with value but simultaneously asking for help is to lead with giving the person you're asking a full appreciation for why you're asking them for help. So explain to them carefully why you value their insight, their thoughts, their contributions, why they are important, why they are valuable to you, um, and then ask for them to give those to you to help you with those contributions, right? So you're giving them value of validation, you're giving them value of a compliment, you're creating opportunity to deepen your relationship with them. So you're giving them a bunch of value through that explanation before you ask for help. So that's kind of how I was thinking about it, but I'm curious to see what other people think about how do you go about asking for help? What are good ways that you've found to ask someone for help where you don't feel like you're imposing? Because I think that's the thing that I always struggle with, is I don't want to feel like an imposition. And maybe, I have this whole thing too that I like, it's in my email signature now. I say to people all the time, think of me as a resource. I'm here to help. So if I can be of any benefit to you, don't hesitate to reach out. So maybe some of these ideas are things I can incorporate so that it's easier for other people to ask me for help. So that's kind of where my head's at this morning, and I'm curious to see what other people think.
Okay, let's do it. John Jay, how can we ask for help?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. First of all, I'm horrible at this. So what I had to do is recognize that for whatever term, this is a term is barred for another group. My stubbornness about asking any from help is a defect of character. So whether I like it or not is part of my character. I'm more apt to help someone else than to let someone else help me. That's in all phases of my life. So for me to make any progress on that, I have to recognize and fully embrace that exists, and that's part of who I am. So that doesn't mean it's good; it just means that's who I am. So for whatever reason, that's the way I am. What I do is, as particularly in Clubhouse, I'm very reluctant to ask people for help here because they're too pitchy. They're always trying to sell me something, and I can't understand whether or not they have any ability to deliver on what they say they can. And here's the caveat: most of them don't even tell you what they deliver. They just repeat stuff they heard other people say that sounds really good. So what I do is I look for people that have strengths where I have weaknesses that can kind of plug in that hole, and see if we can really develop some sort of relationship. And I don't mind paying them for that. But when people are too pitchy, it's like you're trying to sell me something, and I'm instantly not a buyer. So what I try to do is uh, give people actionable information that they can use. I won't give them all the information, but I give them something to start with. And if they want to try on their own, they are more than welcome to. And some of them have great success. Others that don't, if they approach me and they want my help, then I go ahead and offer it as I can. But it's always fair. So I just don't sell people, and I'm really resistant when people try to sell me too. Exactly. That's my point. That's all I got. They know my plane. Whatever is the current clubhouse terminology. That's what I'm doing.
I'm curious about something you said there, John, because you're obviously you're obviously a regular here in the room, and so I'm curious if you're a regular here in this room, if you keep coming back because we don't pitch in this room. It's kind of like it's an unspoken thing, but we don't do pitching. If people try to start pitching too much, we tend to ask them to kind of keep on track or ask a question, give some advice. And so yeah, so I'm just curious if that's one of the things that you value about this space or that keeps you coming back.
It's a really big part of the reason why I keep coming back here because it's not a sales pitchy room. Plus, I have a relationship with Dominick that I value, even though we've never met in real life. Tom, we're getting there. We do different things, but I value your input as well. So it's about generating relationships. Brian just joined the room. Phenomenal guy, phenomenal story. But everybody's contributed, and they don't do it in a way that is sell, sell, sell heavy. So that's a big part of why I keep returning.
I love that. And just so you know too, Dominick and I have actually never met in person. We've never physically been in the same place at the same time. We've had, I don't know how many hours of conversations at this point, both here in this room and outside of this room. But yeah, we've never actually met in person. This entire endeavor that this journey that we're on together, in hosting this room has always been virtual and remote, which is kind of an interesting thing and something that's been fun, to a fun part of the journey for me. But thanks for that, John. I appreciate it.
Hey, Tom, I have to jump in. John Jay, you're gonna love this. We're live streaming too, And somebody so very nicely just offered us, they want to offer us promotion of your channels, viewer, followers, views, chatbots. The price is lower than the competitor. The quality is guaranteed. Auto on, interesting. Like John Jay just saying, like how turned off he is when somebody just straight pitches. And I'm sure this person's lovely, but we've never met him, don't know him, and right in the comments they're selling something. Man, what a turn up! I'm
Scam,
also
scam, scam. If,
yeah.
I always say this: if you have a legitimate business service, contact me by legitimate business means. Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
So true. Hey, we're gonna get to Simon. I'm gonna read something here. I'm gonna try to be higher tech than normal. You ready
I
for
was just
this?
gonna say, Dom, I don't think that message that we got there is a perfectly nice, kind person. I think that's a bot.
Well, I was trying to be nice. I told some. I was with somebody yesterday, and we're doing some writing, and they wrote something, and I'm like, I'm not gonna say that, and they're like, I'm like, it's not PC, and they're like, well, why does it need to be PC and this? And I'm like, it's just, and he was like, well, F you, this is what we're gonna put. I'm like, all right, but you have to write it. I'm not writing it down. So yeah, okay. So here's from our friend Harry Spate. I'm gonna read this, like Tom said, if you're see my face and I'm looking off the sky. So Harry Spate, he wrote a book, Selling with Dignity, and he said, here's what he thinks it fits in this. I saw it this morning. If you think sales is a numbers game, when is it about people? He says, I think it is always about people. Put the people first. The numbers, sales will follow. Harry Spade. Give Harry Spade some love. Okay, so people first. Give. Simon, where do you weigh in? Simon's got a new picture. It's got a heart on it with a heart with a Band-Aid. And he usually drinks tea, and it looks like he might be drinking coffee in this picture. So Simon, do tell.
Good afternoon. Oh, yeah, it's my new house healing journey. So that's the heart. That's the healing heart. That's part of the branding for that. And the purple is the color of spirituality and healing. Where the me having a cup of coffee comes into it, I don't know. It just looks cool, and people keep thinking that I'm offering them a cup of coffee, which is quite a kind of cool thing to do. I'm not sure how that would work in Clubhouse, but yeah, there you go, embracing new things and new challenges in this new year. So on to, I want to tap into something that John, John was saying. How many of us on here? I think we've been on a while now. Have had, when we've been into a room. I've been into rooms where they've done these pictures or they've sent these messages whilst in the room. So I've called them out in the room, which is really cool. I said thank you as well to ABC43222 profile, because they've got them kind of things going on. That's following 5,000 people and got 2 followers. Thank you for your message for me to go on your course. But I'm going to decline today, so that everybody knows in the room as well who they are, and then they get blocked and booted out, which is kind of quite cool. I'm not a fan of that, and the way I've always run my rooms is no sales, no unsolicited advice, because my room's a little bit different. Mine are, people having a voice and wanting to come to stage without having this incessant somebody wanting to rescue, save, and do all of these things. It's become a thing on social media that people come in and I think they lack a little bit of self-awareness, Dominic, a little bit of self-awareness. Is this the correct place to do this? The thing is with most of us, we've built relationships on this app over months and months and months and followed each other around. And actually, possibly if I sent you a message, Dominic, about social media, you might listen to me because maybe over that period of time, I may have earned that. I mean, you can still say no, but the thing is, the way I see it is it's people buying into people. So if a bot comes in or somebody does these little ways that they do it, which they believe work, good luck to them. If it works, I probably don't think it would do because there's no relationship there, is there? And for me, I'd rather build that relationship. I'd rather take time. And this is a good app to do that, build the relationship with people, then maybe send a message. We've been in multiple rooms and hello. And you may have heard me speak about these things that I'm going to pitch to you already in other rooms. Not that I'm here to tell people how to do these things. The asking for help thing, well, yeah, a lifetime of not asking for help which kind of led to huge difficulties. And I'm very transparent about managing complicated mental illness every single day. And I'm in that group of people, group of men who probably just were kind of like the men that wouldn't ever ask for help, as in I had a difficult childhood. Then I was in the military for 12 years. And then I traveled the world kind of thing, which that's not much to do with it. And then I served 8 months in prison. So I'm kind of one of those guys who was one of the people who wouldn't ask for help. And I've learned, and the way I learned was to get to that lowest point, make the mistakes, and then realize actually, maybe if I did lower my pride, I think there's that thing in there, leave your pride at the door and pick it up on the way out. And that's what I've learned. I've learned that actually, if I don't ask for help, which is not making me less of a man or less of a good person. And the other thing as well is that I've realized is to ask the right people, because in the past I asked probably the wrong people who, and let's just say, utilized that wanting to ask for help. So I always say to people, look, if you are asking for help, maybe still ask the right people where possible. As in, I see rooms in here where they're being supportive of people with mental health issues. And I say to them, go and ask the right person, because you can still make mistakes and think that everybody is this nice, shiny person who's actually going to help you. And on here, there's this syndrome of, I love you when I come into a room. People who love you, you've never met, they don't contact you off the app. They do this thing where they love you in the rooms, they invite you to rooms, but they don't do anything off the app. They don't actually contact you. And I said to people on here, 99% of people don't give a shit about us. I'll say it, elephant in the room. The majority of people do not care what's going on in our lives. They'll come to the rooms, they'll say nice words and this, that, and other, but who's the actual people, when you are in that difficult place? Who contacts you when you're not in a room? Who contacts you when you're not speaking? Who contacts you when you've got nothing to give? That was the greatest learning I had, when I had nothing to give and I was in that difficult place. Or a couple of weeks ago, I was in hospital. I had a panic attack, which looked like a heart attack. Who were the people who rang me then? And it was a small group of people. And that's the thing with it. It's a small group of people. I've learned to trust a small group of people and learned to go to those people and say, I require your help. Not ifs and buts and maybes. And if they can't, they can't. That's absolutely correct. And also, when asking for help, I've learned to explain what help I require, not do lip service and not expect that people know. Because in the past, I used to go around the houses for about an hour and someone would say, "Are you asking for help, Simon?" Yeah, I'm asking for help. So now I've learned to go the direct route, pick up the phone and go, actually, do you know what? I'm asking for your help. Can you give me this help, kind of thing? So it's been a very long journey with a lot of difficulties to, again, drop probably some of my own. I'm not going to speak for all the men in the room or anyone else, but this male pride, this male thing of, it's a weakness to ask for help. When some of us in here will know that we're losing lots of people every single day to suicide. Why? Because probably they feel that they cannot ask for help, or they feel there is no help available to them. And I've been in that place. So again, I urge and ask all people, if you get to that place, please do ask. There are people out here. There are some very naturally nice, kind, caring people who will give you that help. So yeah, I will pause there and go and check my Instagram to see if I've got another 6,000 spam messages about how they're going to help with my social media when I'm actually better at social media than they are. But that's okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Simon. I couldn't agree more. I think you're right on the money when people there is this sort of machismo. We're taught. There's no other way to say it, right? We're taught that asking for help, being vulnerable, is a sign of weakness, and it's actually the opposite, right? The opposite is true. Being vulnerable and asking for help is a sign of strength. Knowing, accepting, and verbalizing your own shortcomings, right, is strength, is a strong thing to do. And we're taught that it's weakness, that we can't show weakness, right? That people will take advantage of us for that weakness. But in reality, if we show vulnerability, if we have the strength to be vulnerable, then I find often people will jump at the chance to help you. right? So I think that's an incredibly important point to reinforce, that asking for help, being vulnerable, saying you don't know, admitting when you're wrong, like these things are all signs of strength and signs of character, and actually in a lot of cases signs of good leadership, and not signs of weakness or character flaws, right? It's one of these things, like it's part of the human condition, and for whatever reason, we've been taught to eschew those things when really we should embrace them. So thanks for making that point, Simon. I appreciate it. What
Can
do
I
you
just
think,
add
Tom?
something quickly, Tom?
Absolutely.
The thing you said about good leaders, the good leaders that I respect, and I am myself a leader in my own spaces. Well, we are all leading in some way when we run these rooms. Is yeah, when I hear people say, "Look, I am struggling, I have difficulties, I don't know it all," as opposed to the rooms where we've all been in, where they will avoid, they will deflect, they'll remove people from the room so they don't have to tackle this thing that they see as a weakness, as to that they know it all. When I hear somebody saying that they know it all in a room, I'm gone within 3 seconds, because to me that isn't a leader. The leaders I know have failed. The leaders I know have lost businesses and rebuilt them. I looked at what did they do after they lost the business? What did they do after they made the mistake? What did they do after somebody asked them a question and what's that answer? If they don't know it, do they turn around straight away and go, actually, do you know what? I don't know. I know what I do. I say, I don't know. I will get back to you. I'll make a note of it. And I go and seek that person out and I go and find the answer to that question. That to me is good leadership. Good leadership is seeing all of the qualities of a person, the good, the bad, the ugly, the all things, not just the shiny Instagram, as I call it, where it all looks really nice and cool and they look like they've never failed in their life. They don't have any difficulties and everything comes so easy. For me, if that's out there, then I'd love to meet that person and shake their hand. But in this, certainly after COVID and all of these difficult things going around the world, I'm not sure it exists. So, let's see more of those people who show fallibility, who show that actually they're a human being and that, again, it's acceptable that these things happen. Because, again, when I hear somebody struggling, I buy into them straight. I almost like, there's the empathy. When I hear a person who's not giving anything, I'm like, what empathy can you find for someone who reportedly has it all? I'm like, well, good luck then. Well done. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yeah, it's as we've talked about here, I sort of paraphrased or adapted a term from one of Dominick's authors that we were talking about in the room one time. We got in this whole conversation. I've actually embraced it and talk about it often, about being relentlessly authentic, right? Um, uh, and that relentless authenticity, like what I often say along with that is, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. And I think that takes courage. It takes time to develop the confidence to be able to do that. But I think it's incredibly important to recognize that, like, you shouldn't be striving for this Instagram worthy or perfect life. You shouldn't be striving to try to put this unvarnished image of yourself forward. You should actually just be sharing who you genuinely are, being relentlessly authentic and not trying to be perfect, but just being you. And that is incredibly magnetic. It attracts people, and it will create opportunity for people who share your values, who share your way of seeing the world, to align themselves with you, and repel people who don't. So it's a great way to, like, sort of self-select and surround yourself with people that you share values with. So I think, but yeah, I think it's incredibly important to just be yourself, just be you. That's all we need. That's all anybody needs, right? Is we just need people to be authentically themselves. So yeah.
Yeah, there's well, I think we just hit 8 billion people on the planet. I mean, why try to be like everybody else when Tom and John and Simon and Joyce and Heather and Brian are so interesting? I'm working on a new like MailChimp email blast to send out right now, and I'm just thinking about like your story. Forget what somebody else is doing. Forget all that other stuff. Tell your story. The world needs your story. There's somebody going through what John already got through, somebody going through right now some of the same pain Simon had, maybe they're like me and they're going broke in the restaurant business like I did. Who knows, man? There's people out there going through struggles. Not the smartest guys in the room. Hey, Billy Thorpe's in the house, Brian Swift, Joyce, Heather. Okay, we got some heavy hitters here. Anybody that wants to come up on stage. Sometimes I don't do a good job of pulling people up. So, if sometimes when you're there for a little bit, I ping you. We live stream this as well. We were with this new name. We've had about the other day. I said, "Oh, we just started. We got a new name," and Tom was like, "It's actually been, a month or something like that, or 2 months." I looked back, like on YouTube, and it's the name change has probably been 12 times now or something like that, where we actually changed. And that was you guys, like before we were just using key words, and we thought, well, that's not us. Like John's talking about being authentic, and we don't pitch here. We just try to be us. We're not always the smartest guys. We talk about things that we don't know. We talk about things like asking for help. And okay, so we're going to go down this way a little more. One of the things I wanted to throw out to you, and this is, I want to see people stand so different on this, and this paralyzes people. This idea of views. So Tom runs a successful business. I don't think Tom gives two shits about views, and his life is still a good life. Now, sometimes I think maybe you're like, oh, well, so I just want to, right? Some people are so, they'll delete stuff because it didn't get a view, or they won't post something new because it didn't get a view. Well, did it have value? Was it a good message? I had an author recently that he wasn't getting a lot of views, wasn't getting a lot of comments. All of a sudden, a new client reached out to him and they said, "Hey, we saw your post. I saw you're writing a book." And the only thing he had been posting was about the book. But he got a new coaching client based on something that didn't have a lot of views. And then the guy was silently looking at his stuff, and the business relationship they're in now is much larger than one view or 10 views or 100 views. So, Tom, and I love to hear about this, want to get this started, but where do you stand on this?
Look, I think views, by and large, are a vanity metric, right? They don't actually tell you anything about impact. They literally just tell you that people saw it. So it's about as valuable if you put a billboard on the side of the road and I said, every day 5,000 cars are going to drive past this billboard, right? If you think about that for a second, you can say, oh, 5,000 people are going to see this billboard, but are they going to see it? Are they distracted, right? Are they really paying attention to it? Are they taking in the message? Are they even the right people to receive that message, right? So if you think about that metric, out of that 5,000, like, who really is the message on that billboard going to resonate with? And the same thing is true with like view metrics on social media. Like, a lot of people might see it, but you only have to watch like a second or two of a video that auto plays on somebody's feed in order for it to count as a view. So somebody literally could be scrolling through their feed on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, your social media app of choice. And scrolling through, and somebody says, "Hey, Dom," and you stop scrolling and you look up and you go, "Yeah, what's up?" And while you're looking up and talking to that person, that video is auto playing. Guess what? That counts as a view, right? So like, it's a vanity metric. It doesn't really tell you anything about impact. So you're absolutely right. I don't really care about views. I'm not bothered about views. I don't care if a piece of content I create is viewed 5 times or 1,000 times. I'll tell you what is valuable to me. And the reason why I am going to actually restart doing my vlogs is because I have had people come up to me in real life, in person, ask me how my race went, that I was training for last year, ask me what I'm doing next, what I'm training for next, because they haven't seen any videos about what I have coming up. And I've had people come up to me and tell me that they have started exercising because they watched me go through this journey in my videos, in my vlogs, training for my last Ironman, training for the marathon I did in December. They saw that journey, they followed that journey, and they felt inspired and moved to actually get up and start exercising themselves as a result of it. And like that, one person coming up to me and saying that, and it's been more than one, but one person coming up to me and saying that is worth more than all of the views that you could assign me on any social media platform. So I don't care how many followers I have. I don't care how many views my video gets. It's not about that. It's about creating impact. It's about having a positive impact on the world around me. And it's about, on a personal level, it's about holding myself accountable to a task, right? And so that's what I'm looking to achieve. So I think you should always ask yourself, like, if you find yourself getting caught in this cycle of really caring about views and really caring about follower numbers, just stop and ask yourself why. And if you have a good reason, if there's a reason that makes sense, if it's for monetization so that you can take that funding and do other amazing things with it, great, right? If it's a means to an end, if you have a goal in sight, great. But if your goal is to get more views, if your goal is to get more followers, then you should reevaluate why you're doing what you're doing, I believe, right? But yeah, I don't care about followers. I don't care about views. I care about impact.
Well done. Good answer, Tom. Okay, we are going to keep cruising around. Not the smartest guys in the room. We have Joyce. Joyce, you want to weigh in on this? You want to weigh in on asking for help? Where do you stand? Teach us something, Joyce.
Good morning, everything, all of it. So, Tom, you've inspired me. So you've done your job for today. I come here because I like listening to smart people talk. I know you say you're not the smartest guys in the room, but you do have intelligent conversations, and it's a good way to start my day. And I just appreciate even opinions I don't, obviously, it's good to hear all sorts of ideas. And there's lots of things in the world I don't understand, and to hear messages is really important. I think that I'm a Gen X woman, so I don't ask for help, but maybe I don't ask for help because I was raised to try to act like a man. I don't know. I just feel like all my friends, we do everything ourselves, and asking for help is really weird. And I've learned over the course of my life, I'm a middle-aged woman, that it's wisdom. You know, asking for help is wise. So we can't know everything. And this idea that my professional life existed in a space where I was like expected to know everything is just weird. So that's a weird way of living. So asking for help is very important. It's very hard for me. And so this year, I decided with the podcast, I have talked to so many women across the country, around the world, that every week I am reaching out to 3 of my guests who were on in the past and just saying hi, reconnecting, and seeing how we can work together, partner in 2023. And I've had some really positive responses. And just on another note of building relationships, there's lots of new dispensaries out here in Massachusetts. A lot of my friends do not understand what cannabis is or would never go into a dispensary. So I've made it my mission this year to bring a new friend every week to a different dispensary and doing some reel and content. And like this week, my friend I play tennis with, she's 83. She said she's going to go with me. So that's, changing the world one story at a time. I think we're sort of all on that interesting mission. So have I covered it all? I think I've covered it all. So thank you. I love being in this room in the morning on Wednesdays. It's good.
Hey, Joyce, very cool. And thank you for sharing. I was in New York recently, and they had food trucks that were like selling cannabis. And then you could actually go in some of the trucks. I didn't get a chance to go in, but I definitely would have walked in just to check out. So your mission of taking some people, but yeah, it had
Although I don't, those aren't really legit. There's only a few legal retail dispensaries open in New York. They're coming fast. Those food trucks, they're a little off. But again, this is a new industry. Shop ladies, you know how to feel, health and wellness is important, but this is just a new kind of experience for us. So I'm happy to be the person who's helping my friends access it and not be intimidated. That's my goal.
Hey, thank you. Educated. And appreciate you sharing. And I want to go back to this idea of asking for help that you shared, like maybe for me, maybe it's a blind spot for me. Maybe sometimes we don't even know that was like on some things. I think I asked for help, and then if I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk, I'm like, maybe my biggest weakness is I don't ask for help enough. So how come sometimes I can ask for help, and then other times somebody will come right up to me and say, well, Dom, why didn't you ask for help? And in that case, I needed help. I needed something. And they're like, why didn't you ask me? I would have done this. I would have cut you a check. I would have came over. I would have drove a truck for you. I would have answered these questions. And I didn't ask. Why is that? Why am I like, is it generational, like Joyce says? Brian, you're flashing, so go on. And we'll chat with Brian, and we'll jump to Heather. Go on, Brian.
Wow, great question. And I'm going to be authentically honest in myself about it. The whole being a male and not showing emotions and fear. I mean, let's look at it historically. I mean, especially if you played sports, and if you go before that, if you show I mean, just this is in the animal kingdom. Who gets picked on? The weak one. The weak one, the one who shows themselves as being vulnerable, the one who shows themselves sweating, the one who shows themselves, maybe not as sure. And I think a lot of this comes from that. I think a lot of this comes from, as a man, you really got to walk in, look people in the eye, never let them see you sweat. I'd still buy into that, with some exceptions. I don't think there's anything wrong with being vulnerable as a man at the right time. I don't think there's anything wrong with being emotional as a man at the right time. Um, I think that this being a man is what made part of what made this country great, and we have swung the pendulum to, it's okay not to be a man, which I don't totally agree with in the old sense, not be a man, because there are times when you have to suck it up. You have to be a leader. You know why? Because my kids are watching. And you know why? Maybe the team I'm coaching is watching and shit hit the fan. And I know it's not a good situation, but I can't show that fear to my team or that despair. There are times. I mean, I grew up with, and I'm in my 50s. I grew up with two parents that they really believed adult burdens belong on adults, and they had them. I never saw them. That was their job to deal with them, is and to not let kids have to worry about adult issues. And they did that unbelievably magnificently. But I think that's a generation that's creeping down, and we've opened the door for all these reasons why not to be emotionally strong, and whatnot. Just my opinion. In terms of why we don't ask for help, um, there's several reasons for that. And I've been on both sides. So one is, we kind of have been raised that way to some degree. Maybe not the younger generation as much, but I guarantee if you're 50 and over, you're probably raised. Now, nobody told me never go ask for help. And I was never discouraged from asking for help. But a lot of it was you got to learn to figure things out in life, right? Because at some point you're going to be out there, and this was before technology and before you could look up. I can perform an operation on somebody. All I got to do is pick up a YouTube video, and I could perform an operation these days on somebody. And before, people thought all this stuff was great, but it doesn't teach you how to be emotionally strong. I think that one of the reasons we don't ask for help is we don't have enough trusting people to ask. And my example of that is, I've run a nonprofit for 8 years, and the amount of people that have said, if you need help, is ginormous. And some of them aren't people I know extremely well. They're acquaintances. Some I would call them less than acquaintance, some more. And when the push comes to shove, and you go start asking for help and all the excuses fly out, kind of dulls that desire to ask for help because of the rejection. And then you have people out there like Dominick, who I've never asked for anything for my nonprofit, but every year the man finds a way and steps up to help support it. And has thrown out there, if there's anything I can do for your nonprofit, let me know. And that came before I even had to ask him. And we became amazing close friends years ago. And I return that reciprocity will always be there, not because he helped me, but because, and not just because he asked, but because I've gotten to know his character as a man, and whatnot. And I think we're not close enough and comfortable enough with enough people to truly ask for help when it comes to really personal things. I mean, I've been in these rooms with a lot of people. When I go to Tom for help with certain things, 100%. Same thing with John. And I've never met him. I've had conversations. We've talked on the phone. We've talked in rooms. We've talked in groups. But I believe I'm a very good judge of character. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't ask for help from anybody else here. There's a lot of people that I've been in rooms with, Billy and Debbie and Prof T and whatnot. But I believe a lot of times it's because we don't feel that we're going to actually get that help. So why ask for it? Just my opinion. I am complete.
Swifty, love you, man. Brian P. Swift's a dear friend of mine. I've rode on his motorcycle. I've attended at events, done videos, worked with him. So one of the things one of the things just real quick in this room, make sure that you, if you can, like Simon was talking about, taking the relationship off the app. Follow somebody, connect with them, send them a DM, ask them a question, like one of their posts, comment. So there's 1,000 ways to support. You might find out that they run a nonprofit you believe in. You might find out you guys live an hour away and could go for a coffee together. You might find out that you have similar hobbies or children that both talk back to you, and maybe you need to sit down and have a chat about that. So connect in as many ways as you can. Hey, Debbie was flashing. Debbie was flashing when Brian was talking. So Debbie, and she gave you some hearts too, Brian. So that's lovely. Hearts are good. I need more emojis on that thing. There's I see 10 emojis. I want like 50 emojis. Okay, go on, Debbie.
Good morning, everyone. Brian, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm in the over 50 crowd, so a lot of how you were brought up, I was brought up the same way. And I totally agree with Joyce. I was brought up in the way that, my dad always said, you don't ask for help. It's okay to give anybody help that if they ask, certainly serve others. But, you need to be self-sufficient and self-reliant and be able to fend for yourself. And so it is very difficult for me to ask for help. And there are times, I will be very honest, that there are times where I've been disappointed. And so sometimes I think I purposely don't ask for help because I'm afraid of that disappointment. But I will say, had I not been raised the way I have or I was, I would not have survived some of the challenges that came my way from a very bad car accident I overcame and a very abusive marriage. And it gave me the stamina and the persistence to go through my challenges. So I don't know if it's good or bad, but learning to ask more for help is something that I am working on. And again, I think it goes back to what Brian said. It's about finding people that you have the same values and morals and traditions and stuff that you can start building that foundation of trust. So I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. You're doing great work out there, and appreciate your thoughts on asking for help. This is not the smartest guys in the room. We do this every Wednesday. We have a bunch of great people come through that teach us things and ask questions and bring up subjects like chat GPT and views and asking for help that make us think, I could do that, or I shouldn't be doing that, or I I could learn from that person. I need to connect and follow and see what they're doing. Okay, this is see, I'm working on my segue. Somebody I always learn from, our master of algorithms, Heather. So asking, we're talking about all these things. So let me reset. That's the cool thing to say, I think. We're talking about asking for help. We're talking about Tom said he does. I think he said I don't give a shit about views. He said something like that. I mean, that's something we should clip, replay it. You
Yeah,
remember?
sometimes I have a dirty mouth, but it's the truth. I don't give a shit about views. I really don't.
And I believe that. Like, and Tom's funny because Tom, like his 2 Emmy nominations and stuff like he never drops. You know what I mean? Like he never is just like a mic drop. Yeah, have that or did this. Like a couple weeks ago or last week when I was talking about Anthony Bourdain, and he's like, "Yeah, I met him a couple times and worked for the same company." Or another time we're talking about like Deadliest Catch, and you're like, "Oh, I worked on that other production that." Was this where they were up in the helicopters or whatever, just so subtle, he knows what he's talking about. Like, go on, Tom.
I was going to say that other production that you mentioned was Coast Guard Alaska, which is a show I'm super proud of. I was the series producer for the first 3 seasons, and it's still available to watch. I think it's on. You can stream episodes on. I want to say Fubo, but yeah, super proud of that work. That was a real true documentary series, and I spent about 2 years up in Alaska, embedded with the Coast Guard, running that show. And yeah, those guys are heroes. They do incredible work. And we were just so fortunate to have the opportunity to document the work that they do. And I met the reason why I'm wearing this ring. I met my better half up there in Alaska working on that show. So that show, for personal reasons, kind of holds a special place in my heart as well. But, got to tell some incredible stories and actually talk about one of my experiences on that show in my book, talking about doing an interview with the fiance of a guy who didn't survive his fishing vessel going down, and how impactful that was and meaningful it was to have the opportunity to tell that story too. So yeah, it was an incredible thing. So I would encourage everybody to check it out. I don't get anything out of it at this point, but please check it out if you get a chance. It was really incredible show.
Thanks,
Had to,
Tom.
had to do it. Had to do that
No,
plug.
no, you deserved it, man. Thank you for sharing. And back to what John Jay said earlier. And John, you mind if I call you John Jay? Because early on, I think it said John Jay, and people are always like, when I introduce him to somebody, they're like, "What should I call him?" His thing
That's
says
cool.
John, and
That's
I'm
the
like,
brand name I use, John J. Wiley. But here's John or Jay or anything's good with
uh,
me.
yeah, because I'm always like, oh, I know him as John Jay, but I don't know. Call him what you want to call him. But John mentioned earlier people that know what they're talking about, people that have done it, people that just don't say they did it. And Tom's one of those guys where he did it. And in this space, every week we talk to people that have done it. We talk to people that are thinking about doing it, and we give them both equal opportunity. If you want to write a book, if you want to do a video, if you've been Emmy nominated, if you have a syndicated radio show going on 100 stations like John Jay, if you've run over 100 marathons like Simon, we want to talk to you because there's somebody else on the other end you're thinking about doing, and we can learn from everybody. Okay, now back to learning. See, I had such a good segue before. You guys ripped me off, and now Heather, where do you want to weigh in on all this? Go on, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, everybody. Tom, John, Simon, Joyce, everybody. Prof T. Yeah. So asking for help is not my strong suit. I am horrible at asking for help. I feel guilty when I ask for help. And I'm gonna point to an experience I'm like going through right now. So I'm in mediation with my ex-husband, and I'm finding it very difficult because of the PTSD that I still have associated with that past relationship. And, I went to mediation 2 weeks ago and, I could not stop shaking. And it was just a mess. So we have another one today. But between then, I was like, okay, like clearly I need help because of my like physical things happening while I'm in the same room with this individual. So, I had to lean on my lawyer because, and I'm not good at asking for help. So I didn't even want to have my lawyer help me because I was like, I could do this by myself. Like, I got this. But then getting in the room, and it's just been, lack of sleep and just worrying about this. So I was like, you know what? Like, I really need to ask for help because I know I'm not good at this. And I'm still healing from that. So I'm leaning on, and I asked for help from my lawyer, and I'm leaning on her to help me and guide me through what I need to do. I usually don't talk about my personal life, but this is asking for help, right? And I can ask for help in my business all day long. No issues. I could talk about business all day long. No issues. That's where I am. I am very business centric. But with my personal life, it's really difficult for me to ask for help. Ask help from my husband. I feel guilty. Ask help from my mom. I feel guilty. I even ask the kids to help me pick up their stuff. Feel guilty. So it's I'm like, okay, I need to ask for help from my lawyer. And now I do have that help from my lawyer. And I'm hoping today is going to go much easier than the last one where I could hardly catch my breath because being there, it just triggers the PTSD. So yeah, so don't be afraid to ask for help. It's difficult. It sucks. But you have to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, right? You need to be a little outside of your comfort zone to grow. So just want to say that. Thanks, guys.
Other great points. And just recently with some stuff, I would say that other people have said, I didn't know you needed the help. Or me, in fact, if somebody asked me, I might have said, sure, I didn't know you needed it. I'd love to. What is this good? What? So I think that openness, like Tom says, that vulnerability, if we can let people know more so, it's tough. But in certain circumstances, like where you're physically shaking, to be able to say, hey, I need a little help here. I say that to Tom some days. I say, hey, I got kicked in the teeth earlier this morning. I need a little more. Would you mind picking me up or whatever? And he says, yeah, buddy, whatever you need, whatever you want to talk about. So it happens. Don't be so hard on yourself. All right, let's keep cruising around. I think we're cruising around. Prof T, and her mic came off, and that's funny because I think we were too Prof T. We chatted with Brian a little, and anybody that ever wants to jump up and say something, just flash your mic. If you have something to contribute to the conversation. But some people, sorry, I'm going to do this. Some people say they come into this room and they say, well, we didn't know how the room flowed. We didn't know what happened. So typically we talk about these conversations. We go left to right as people jump up and want to talk, make sure, try to meet everybody. But at any point, somebody might be like a master of algorithms like Heather. Somebody might have a radio show. Like I don't have anything to say about radio, but John Jay does, or somebody might be asking about books. And sure, Brian and Prof T would be great. Somebody's asking about Amazon Lives. Well, then let's get Billy in here and he'll teach us about Amazon Lives. So that's why we jump around at some point. But Prof T, what do you got for us?
Hey, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, or good now. Hope you're all doing good. See some of my friends here. This is Teresa Agostinelli, otherwise known as Prof T from Philly. So, loving the conversation, and look at all these smart guys in here and smart girls. So, I always have to say this. You guys are the smartest guys in the room. I've learned so much. So, and I always feel encouraged. Three things just going to cover quick because there's so many topics that were being discussed, and I'll just stick to the ones that are sticking out in my mind. Heather, thanks for sharing that. There's so many people going through that. I don't know if you knew this, but I actually do that. I work on mediation and co-parenting, parental alienation, parental reunification, all of that stuff that goes with custody and uncooperative exes. So reach out to me. I was just on a podcast a couple weeks ago on this highly, it's like the number one topic right now from COVID. So anyway, that's number one. And keep at it. You got this, girlfriend. So number two, asking for help. Um, I was born and raised from a middle class Italian family, very conservative. We didn't share problems outside the house, although there were many, and they were very traumatic. It's in my book. But we didn't talk about it. And it was an issue of pride. And I was taught to be self sufficient. So I didn't ask for anything, but I didn't have the coping skills to be self sufficient. So I sabotaged myself for so many years. What I found was this: lots of women aren't able to ask for help because it does show a sign of weakness, whether you're a guy, whether you're a girl. And human behavior, which I happen to do for a living, shows that people are very afraid of being looked at as weak or vulnerable. As Brian said, in the animal kingdom, they go for the weakest in the pack. So I've actually started a women in business networking, free mentoring and accountability on Zoom, because I found that the last couple of years, so many women are struggling with their business and the work-life balance and the stress and trying to be a mom and a wife and a business owner. And I learned early on that if you did ask for help, you viewed it as transactional. So I lived many, many years when I asked for help, I was like, well, now I got to pay this person back. Now I got to do something for them. Now I got to figure out a way to, do something even more than they did for me. And I began living my life very transactional. It works both ways. Well, if I help you, then you need to help me. Or if you help me, then I guess I better find a way to help you, even if I can't. So being transactional and helping people isn't helpful. So if you do it out of the kindness of your heart, I believe that if you help people on their journey to success, they will turn around and help you on yours. So always ask for help. I do believe that women struggle with that. We can't have it all. We can't do it all. We need people to help us. And then thirdly, as far as views, oh my gosh, Tom, you're so right on. Years ago, I used to worry so much about who was watching, who was liking, who was clicking, who was sharing, who was posting and reposting and reposting. And I don't do that anymore. And I'll land with this, because I'm already doing well. It took 20 years to get to where I am. I'm not on the 6 o'clock news. I'm not in the White House. I'm not all over the country, but I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm very proud of what I'm doing. And it's very successful. I've built a very successful career. And what I've learned is that it doesn't matter who's liking your stuff, because a lot of times people pay for those. So you can certainly pay lots of money and boost your posts and get people from all over the place, right? Are they a client? Are they a potential customer? I don't know. For me, it was probably not. And so I'm very proud of what I do. And in closing, the whole thing about posting and liking and sharing and who's watching and who's liking and clicking, the bottom line is, for me, if it's getting my name out there and my face, and I've had so many people, well, I'll be out somewhere, oh my gosh, I've been watching you, I've been seeing your posts, you're doing amazing, can I give you a call, can you help my daughter, can you help my so and so, can you speak to our company, can you come to our luncheon? And it has helped with book sales. So I'm with you, Tom. I don't really give a shit. However, it's very important to keep your name out there and keep your face in the place. Thank you, Prof T. Over to you. Thanks.
Prof T, excellent. And I love this, your thoughts on views. I'm a believer the same. It's who's the view? Is it the right view? I once had a a distant family member that like really got in a fight with me over it because I'm like, doesn't matter. I'll come do a video on you. It'll be great. And I think he thought I was being smart with him because I posted someday, don't do it for the views. Your message is strong, it can make a difference. And they were like, oh, that's bullshit. And I was like, no, seriously, I'll come do a video on you. And I thought the video would have been cool. And it turned out to be like a rift. And I felt bad because I meant nothing by it. If that's what you took offense to, no. In my world, I just keep putting out the content. I believe every piece of content has value. I believe if I have a goal to share inspiration, positivity, and smiles. If you look at any piece of content that I've put out for the last 10 years, I believe it accomplishes one of those things: inspiration, positivity, smiles. It's always on message. So, did one person see it and maybe smile? Did one person see it, have a better day? Did one person see it and hold the door for somebody else? I won. So, now to tell you, I've had stuff that hit me and my daughter making slime one time on TikTok. It has 249,000 views right now. It is 10 seconds and it's one of my worst videos. Uh, like it has it, but was it me and my daughter making slime? So it did accomplish the goal of making people laugh, making people smile, sharing positivity. But as far as like I've interviewed soldiers that gave 2 legs in Afghanistan, that for our country, like, I mean, that's the video that I would love to take off, but it didn't, but I believe in it more. I believe in it more than the video that got 250,000 views. The other day, on Instagram, I posted a reel. I just started making reels, and the algorithm's different when you start. It was 3 tomahawks passing over the Steeler game, and it has 20,000 views on it. Like, yeah, it's cool, and the tomahawk flying over, doing the flyover, it's inspiring. But if it was all about views, I'd be jumping up and down, making tomahawk helicopter videos the next 50 times. But it isn't about that. It's about the message of, we will stay the course. So I go back to, I agree with Prof T. I agree with Tom. And I've never once, I didn't even know that you could look at who likes and hearts your posts, and see well, why do I care who I've never once looked at it. And somebody told me, you can see that's of all things that I have time for, it is not to go in and see. And then I will, just to throw this to something Tom said earlier, TikTok recently, it used to fly up on the side of your video who liked your post. Now on the side of your post, you could just see it would show their face, these 10 people, these 20 people. They changed it to now it's everybody who viewed your post. So to Tom's earlier point about they could have viewed it for 2 seconds, and now they're showing you, they're capturing your dopamines are increased because you see these pictures on the side of your screen, but it is really somebody that just looked at it for probably while they paused on it while they were talking to somebody else. So don't fall in love with the views. Okay, we might get killed over that, Tom, but go on, my friend.
Well, I wanted to jump back to something that Prof T was saying, because she was talking about how we have this tendency to kind of get in this framework where we see asking for help and giving help as a very sort of transactional relationship, right? And obviously that's not a healthy way to do it. It's not a good way to do it. And so I wanted to sort of offer, if I could, a way to a little bit of understanding that maybe will help reframe the way we look at giving and receiving help. And this is something I've talked about before, so feel free to tell me to shut up if I'm repeating myself too much. But I just wanted to talk about, and this goes back to I have a bachelor's in psychology. I don't have a master's or anything like that. I don't have a higher degree. I'm not a clinical practitioner by any stretch of the imagination. But I wanted to run back to the rule of reciprocation. And when I talk about the rule of reciprocation, usually what I do, and I do this for a very particular reason too, which I can explain after if anybody's curious, I usually kind of have a little bit of a progression that I kind of use to explain this. So to start out with, for anybody who has kids in the room or has been around young children, which is probably everybody in this room, either you have kids or you've been around young kids, you've definitely been a kid. You'll notice that whenever parents or an adult is interacting with a child, even when they're pre-verbal, so like 18 months or younger, a child, specifically in like a high chair or something like this, when you hand them something, when an adult hands a very young child something, they will typically say something to this effect, words to this effect. They'll hand it to the child. As the child takes it in their hand, the adult will say to the child, and now you say thank you. Right. And so what they're doing is they're teaching that child to follow the rule of reciprocation. And the rule of reciprocation states that we cannot take, I like to add, or receive without giving in return. Right. And so what is the adult teaching that child? That when someone gives you something, you give them gratitude in return. You say thank you, because that's how we give gratitude. Right. So it's embedded in us from a very early age. When you look at, you take that into your adult life. If you're walking down the street, you pass somebody on the street, a stranger, you make eye contact. The stranger says, "Good morning" to you. What do you say in return? "Good morning." Why? Rule of reciprocation. You can't take or receive without giving in return. And then the metaphor that I like to use to kind of tie it all together is one that's a common situation that most of us have been in. At some point in our adult lives, you're out to dinner with a friend. The check lands on your table at the end of the meal. Your friend grabs the check and says, "I got this. Dinner's on me." Right. And you do the little dance back and forth. You say, "Oh no, come on, you don't have to do that." Or let me at least cover the tip, or I'll cover my half, or let me get the drinks. Right. And you kind of try to bargain a little bit. And then ultimately they insist. And so you give in. Right. And you actually make two decisions side by side, but they come out in the same breath. So we don't think of them as two separate decisions. The first decision you make is to accept the gift. So you say, "Okay, thanks. I really appreciate that." And the second decision you make is to reciprocate. And you say, "The next time, or the next one, is on me." Right. And so I think when asking for help or giving help, think about the rule of reciprocation and just follow the rule of reciprocation. So if someone gives you something, all you have to do is give them gratitude in return by saying thank you. And if you decide to give someone something, you shouldn't do it with the expectation that they will give you something in return. You do it out of the kindness, like Prof T was talking about, out of the kindness of your heart. You do it so that they will benefit. And ultimately, they will give you something in return, either gratitude, or they will find other ways to pay back that kindness, to reciprocate that kindness. So just bear the rule of reciprocation in mind. It's something that is embedded in our culture. You cannot avoid it. It is so embedded that it's practically instinctual for us. So just follow the rule of reciprocation when it comes to giving or receiving help. Or asking for help, and it ought to work out pretty well for you. But yeah, I just wanted to chime in and add that in, Dom. So sorry for hijacking for a minute.
No, hijacks are good. You have full. You would carte blanche. How do you spell that, by the way?
Carte blanche.
Carte. Okay.
Yeah,
I probably
carte.
wrote it in 10 books. Never knew how
It's
to
also
spell
it's French, so I'm most likely mispronouncing it, but there's definitely a T in there. It's definitely carte blanche.
Okay, cart. Hey, Joyce, you were flashing. Did you want to add something there?
I was listening to the Hidden Brain podcast, my favorite podcast, and yesterday was literally on this topic, and I posted it in the chat. But it was about persuasion and how they're really, of all the ways that people are persuaded, it's really like three. It's the norm of reciprocity was a big one, scarcity, and then likability. I thought that was interesting. So, anyways, I just thought that was very on topic because I listened to it last night.
Power of Persuasion. I read a book one time, The Power of Persuasion. Who was the Power of Persuasion? I'm gonna have to look that. Jason probably knows. Jason's
Cialdini.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, this is Dr. Nashida. That's my wheelhouse. So yeah, Cialdini. Really great book.
Yeah, see that? Thank you. Okay, we're gonna chat with you in a second. Aaron, what do we got going on, man? Not the smartest guys in the room here. We're talking being held hostage by views, and we're talking asking for help. Weigh in, my friend.
I love asking for help, except for when I don't. And I know that sounds really silly, but it's the total truth. I absolutely hate asking for help, but I know how necessary it is. In the Marine Corps, you don't ask for help, you just get shit done. That's the only way it's ever been. At least that was my experience. I mean, I did join during a time of war. That's the way it's supposed to go. But man, I'll tell you, that asking for help is probably one of the most embarrassing things a man or a woman of any sort of like status can ask for. And when it comes to being handicapped by views, it's not so much about the views, really. It's who's watching. You can have one view, and if that one person is a valuable person, that's the best thing for you. It might be the break that you're looking for. It might be whatever it is. It doesn't matter who it is, as long as you've got some sort of fans in some capacity, at least in my opinion. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I love listening to all of you. I take notes on some of the stuff that you guys have said, and I really appreciate the opportunity every week, at least for the last month, Dominic, for letting me come in here and listen and talk. So thank you guys, and that's where I'm at right now.
Hey man, Aaron, we appreciate you and everybody, whether you come, whether if this is your first time, thanks for being here. We've been here pretty much 50 out of 52 weeks. So there may be a time we've had some guest host at time with us and stuff, but we're going to be here. We're going to keep showing up, and we appreciate you guys, and you make it happen, whether it's coming in one time because you haven't been on Clubhouse for 6 months, or whether it's you listen for 4 straight weeks. We appreciate you, and you guys make the conversation is what it is. And a lot of times, as the title says, me and Tom are not the smartest guys in the room, so we defer to you. That's the beauty. That's the beauty. We defer to you, and you don't even know it. I'm kidding. No, you are appreciated. Hey, Jason, man, what do you got for us on the subject? How you been?
As far as help is concerned, love it, man. And you know, it's interesting what Aaron said because he was in the Corps, I was in the Navy. And one thing is you do ask for help. You do have a standing operating procedures. The military teaches people in different they have an overall message to work as a team to get shit done. And I'm not pointing him out, but I'm pointing it as something that sometimes we can misinterpret. And one thing I had to get over when I got started with my practice, people asked for me when February 3rd hit in 2020 and COVID happened. I was out of a job. I didn't see I was out of a job. I didn't know it was going to happen, but this was in the months before. And what ended up happening is my firm let me go because they're being investigated, or the firm I worked for, they were being investigated. So what ended up happening is I had to start a brand new business. What am I going to do? I need to support my family. It's all on my shoulders. And lo and behold, it was a childhood friend who reached out to me and said, "Hey, I need your help. Do you know anything about agriculture?" I said, "I know nothing about agriculture. I know about contracts. This is the kind of law I do, yada, yada, yada." And it started just by him asking me for help. I have no one to go to. And because his dad helped raise me, I felt like a debt of gratitude. And so when he was humble enough as a farmer who doesn't want to ask for help, it taught me, I was like, if he can do this, and the guy I knew grew up with, he can do this, then how am I looking at this perspective of sharing, looking for help in the wrong way? And how can I look at it the right way? And it's like, it's really delegating duties. Why take on heavy work that's unnecessary or mundane work that weighs you down in your time? And you're going to be either one of those kind of people that it's either you're going to complain like, I don't have enough time in the day. I'm drawn. I don't feel fulfilled. There's a lot of things that go into it, but for those who've done very well for themselves, everybody has self-interest. No one is self-made. Nobody. But you are community built. You are constantly community built through your networks, through your education, through your friends, family, even work, whether you're an employee, an entrepreneurial employee, or an entrepreneurial business owner, you got assistance. It's our ego that controls this in such a way that holds us back, and we don't process for the benefits because we don't want to, we assume to be weaker. But it depends on your delivery and what you're negotiating on. People come in your life for a season and reason. Same with projects and jobs and in clients. So if you really look at it, never hold on to anything too dearly for too long. Allow some wiggle room. And if it flows out, it does. But the beautiful part is if by getting help helps you become the better, your business elevated, your product, your content, you're all community built every single time. No matter how you've got to this point. But if you can negotiate yourself out of the ego part and saying, you know what, here's my new ego. I love the help. I have no problem asking, but that's the difference between me going from no job to I have my own business. I have clients word of mouth. I do very well for myself. And I'm not afraid to ask for help. Like, hey, there's stuff I don't know. I'm not the expert. But guess what? I'm developing the expertise. And that makes the difference between me getting someone who's calling me versus am I looking for somebody? So and that's where I'm just gonna stand.
Damn. Hey, Jason, what did you eat for breakfast today?
I had my mud water and that's it. And a
Okay,
workout.
man. This guy's on fire. We might all need to what mud water is, but what's mud water?
Mud water is a mushroom extract tea.
Oh,
It's a coffee substitute. I don't drink coffee anymore. So it doesn't have the caffeine. It has mushrooms and all kinds of other great ingredients. And I can put it cold or hot and I mix it up. And it's just like having a cup of coffee, but it's tea. And then you add your creamer and there you go. It's a nice mellow rise and keep you going without the drawback of coffee.
hey, man. And I'm kidding around, but you were on point. You're on message. You're opening up my little brain cells in my head. I'm thinking, whoa, this guy's on point today. So thank you for sharing, my man. Maybe I should try some mud water. Mud water. Be Tom's saying no. His head is going. I am not drinking mud water, but mushrooms are good. I made homemade Marcella last night, and it was good.
I'll send you some, Tom, and you can try it out and see what you think,
I,
man. And
look,
just
I love
doing is believing
mushrooms.
in it.
I love mushrooms, and it's not that I wouldn't try. I don't love the name. I don't. The branding is a little bit rough for me. But I love mushrooms, and I would absolutely try a mushroom tea. I've actually been curious about them, but there is no way I'm replacing coffee. That's what I'm shaking my head about. Like that's just not going to happen.
Amen. Amen. Just kidding.
Yeah, Prof T said I just started my ear. It's anybody that's holistic in medicine. My ears have rung for like the last 10 years. So, and I mean, they ring nonstop 24 hours a day. And so I like at night, that's when they ring the most. Like if I wake up in the middle of the night, boom, it's like a concert is playing at all times. So I tell my wife on a positive spin, oh, it's a beautiful thing. There's a concert playing for me at all times. But one of the things they said could cause that was caffeine. So I gave caffeine up for 4 days. The ears were still ringing. So I was like, I'm back. Diet
Well,
dues, I'm
being on it
back.
6 months, guess what? 6 months, I'm more alert. I hydrate with water more often. I'm not drinking sodas endlessly. This is, I gave up caffeine. It's just all I can tell you is it was hard for me to believe, but a friend of mine says, "Hey, just try it for a month. Give me 30 days, and if you don't like it, I'll give you $100." That's what he told me, and I was like, "Are you kidding me, right?" And he's like, "I love coffee. I love the smell of it. I love the taste of it. I like the jerk. Like, okay, now I'm ready to roll." But I hated the draw. I hated like 2 hours later, I feel so depleted and I'm reaching for energy somehow or doing another coffee and I'm not spending $5 a day on coffee. Even though I can brew coffee at home, let's face it, a lot of us go back to Starbucks or whatever. I just like, hey, drink a cup. I have my water all day. I feel healthier. Whatever you want. I think it's just the preconception. That's the other thing about. Let's just tie this into the help. How many times do you preconceive something because you don't know? I think that's what defeats accepting help is our preconception versus actual conception and coherence. So that also I'd like to tie that in. But I know Laura's right after me, so I'm gonna mute up.
Hey, look at that. What a gentleman. Mute up. Good job, though. We appreciate the subject matter. Hey, Laura, what's going on? We're talking asking for help, and we're talking falling in love or fearing the metrics. So the metrics of views. So, Laura, if you want to weigh in on those subjects or ask a question, have at it.
Hi, yes, I'm Laura. I recently had to ask for help within my business, and I reached out to one of my fellow people that I follow, and kind of put off some ideas that I was thinking, and she replied back, and it's very helpful, and I'm still kind of waiting to see with the decision I made to help my client not to be so frustrated with me coming over and visiting them, because I'm a companion and death doula, positive life kind of coach. And sometimes I get hired by the caregivers, but my client doesn't always understand why she might need my help. And so I was having a really tough time with that. And but I really like all the things that are being said, especially like with the views, not worrying so much about the views, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. Because I do tend to go, okay, well, who's liking and who's following, and um, kind of sometimes even waste some of my time on that, versus creating content or thinking about how I can um, put my business more out there. I don't have a business name yet. I am brand new, and so I'm really new to this room. Number one, and number two, I haven't launched my business yet. Um, but when I saw podcast and storytelling, those are kind of things that I've thought about, and um, am kind of wondering how I can uh, incorporate them into my business, because I want to also do legacy work with my um, death doula business. So storytelling or legacy work and possibly podcasts. So that's all I just needed to say. Thank you.
Laura, thank you. And I'm going to liberate you. This is anybody that wants to accept this. I'm going to liberate you right now. Do not look at who's viewing your post. Do not push that button. Do not waste 2 more minutes of time opening that thing up to look who's viewing that. Number one, the algorithm, social media's algorithms only let 5 to 10% of your content even through to your friends and family and followers and things like that. So they may not even had a chance to view it. And you might be mad. Why didn't Sally, why didn't Sally view my post and like it with a heart? Well, Sally never saw it, and it wasn't her fault because she doesn't go on Instagram the same time of day you're on. And by the time she did get on Instagram and look at her feed, you were the 50th post in her feed, and she only had 1 minute at the time, and so she only got down 5 posts or something, like 5 posts on her feed, because she had 5 minutes. She watched one 60-second video. She scrolled down, and she didn't get to your post that you posted at 11 o'clock that day. That's the reality of it. So don't click that little button and fall victim to seeing who's looking at your stuff. And then the second thing, just I'll touch on briefly, and then we're going to get to the doctor here, Doctor and Julie and Jonathan, is hell yeah, you can use a podcast for your business. You can niche it down as specific as you want to go. You could talk, like, I'm a publisher. I could talk about all publishing on a podcast. You could talk about, like, Joyce talks about, she's cannabis mom, and she talks about cannabis on her show. And of course, her business is cannabis, and that's what her podcast is about. So 100%. Brian P. Swift has a radio show and a podcast, and he's a coach, and he talks about coaching and helping motivate and getting people on the right path. So without a doubt, you can talk about those things that aid your business. Okay. Now, this is interesting because I want to say Dr. Nashater, but then I should say Dr. Solheim. So, Doctor, where do you weigh in on all these things and what would you like us to call you? Thank you for checking out the room.
Well, thank you. And thank you for bringing me up. It's Nashiter. You pronounced it perfectly, Dominic. So thank you for that. Well, I came into the room. I've been dropped into the room a few times over the last few weeks when I get chance, drawn in by the focus on podcasting because I am about to start my own podcast. And having all kinds of jitters around doing that. So like to listen in to the tips that you have shared over the past few weeks. And just listening in now, I understand you're talking about asking for help. The last time we asked for help, or the importance of asking for help. Is that right?
You got to ask him for help. And the other thing that keeps coming up is just this idea of falling in love with views. But in this room, we talk about anything that goes on social or publishing, just ways to tell your story more effective, get your message out there. But asking for help is something that could definitely help you get your message out there, So go on.
Oh, for sure. I'm a huge fan of asking for help because I'm very aware of my many limitations in all kinds of spheres. So I kind of know I stick to my lane with what I know I'm good at, and then I ask for help with pretty much everything else. One of which is podcasting. Interestingly, so I've got a great group of people who are experts in that space who are helping me set up my podcast. But I've also spoken to people for help on things like my social media support, which I'm also not great on. I ask for help in, seeking out people in my network. So I'm a great believer of that because for me, help is really reciprocal. I have a strong network locally here. I live in Norway. And even last night, for example, we went to an ice hockey game and I brought along a couple of colleagues who I really felt if they met and connected, it would really boost their network and their ability to do their business, which they did. And it's just that feeling that the more you both ask for help and offer help, the richer your everybody's, yours in particular, since you're the one driving that your experience is, and the more, in a way, I think it boosts both optionality for you and creativity for you. So yeah, huge fan of it. Do it a lot for lots of different reasons, but particularly because I think as a psychologist, and I've been a clinical psychologist for a very long time, helping other people was an intrinsic part of what I did. And so offering help comes very easily and very naturally. Yes, it's a bit harder to ask for help, but I've really trained that as I realized that I was spending an inordinate amount of time trying to get good at things that I actually am not ever going to be really great at, and best to use those people who are already experts in that space. So that's my view on asking for help.
Thanks for sharing that, Dr. Nashter. I wanted to ask, actually, you talked about launching your own podcast and how you're leaning on a group of experts that you have around you to help you get that going. I'm curious about something. Are you, in the course of thinking about and planning the launch of that podcast, are you planning on filming the podcast episodes?
That's a great question because originally when we discussed the concept of this podcast, I am much more comfortable with audio for myself than the video side of things. And so I imagined it was going to be audio only. It turns out it's going to be both. It is going to be video. And I can see the merit of that in lots of ways. I think this is such a richer experience for people to see you speaking. I think we get a lot more information about people in the conversation when we actually have the visual element, of conversation. So we are going ahead with the video, and I'm just going to have to get used to my comfort levels with that. But I think it for sure for me. I in my podcast, it's going to be a richer experience for the viewer and the listener.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I think you have done well surrounding yourself with some smart people, and they're giving you some good advice to that end. I always encourage folks, if they're thinking about launching a podcast, to film it at the same time. Vice versa, when people talk to me about creating a video series, because that's my field of expertise is video production, I'll turn around and say, we're also going to put this out as a podcast, right? Because digital omnipresence is increasingly more and more important for brands and businesses in order to give your audience, your community, options as to how they see you. I know personally, I find, and it's not just anecdotal evidence. This is true. If you look at the metrics, that people will specifically listen to a podcast, but then if something happens on that podcast and they really want a visual component, they will go seek out the YouTube channel for that podcast and watch part of that episode so they can actually see an exchange between people or see what happened in the room that they had already listened to. So, and I've done that myself. I know lots of other people have done that. And I know the metrics bear out that people interact with podcasts across multiple formats and across multiple platforms. So it's really important to have that digital omnipresence. It's the same is true as with brands and businesses. If you're going to have a digital presence, which obviously everybody should, it should be video. It should be audio. It should be across multiple platforms. You should be looking for opportunities to give your community different modalities through which they can interact with you and your brand and your content, so that you can get the most out of that relationship, and actually so that you can give them the most, because I believe that content that brands and businesses and which includes individuals produce should be value driven for the audience, right? It's not about you, it's about them. So you should always be looking for opportunities to create value and deliver value to your audience. And the more value you stack for your community, the more they are going to support you, because they're going to follow that rule of reciprocation that I was talking about before. And they're going to look for opportunities to return that value back to you. So develop those reciprocal relationships with your community that revolve around an exchange of value, because that's what all the most important relationships in our lives revolve around, is an exchange of value. I think that's core to my mission of humanizing the world of business. Like, that's what I want to do, is humanize the world of business through better communications and push those kind of relationships. So glad to hear that you're creating opportunity for your community to connect with you and receive value from you on multiple platforms. So cool, and glad
Thank
to
you,
have you in
Tom.
the room.
Well, thank you. Can I ask you a question, since you mentioned that this is your niche on the video side? What tips do you have for the video element? I mean, I've seen a lot of videos, and I've been a guest, obviously, on podcasts. I never hosted my own, so this will be my first, but I've been a guest. And there are various types of video setup and quality and visuals. And I wonder if there is, a kind of gold standard on what really works for audience viewing in terms of the look and the feel and the styling and those kinds of things of it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there is no one size fits all, right? I think the best way to approach it is for the video and the presentation, the visual presentation, to be authentic to the branding of the podcast. So if you're doing sort of if it's a more formal podcast where you're doing sort of more formal interviews, then I would think of visually, I would look to package that in a way that sort of suits that tone, right? But if it's a super casual, fun, sort of interactive podcast where everybody's sort of laughing and joking and throwing ideas back and forth, then I would look to sort of create a more casual look and put people in sort of more comfortable chairs and or on a couch and things like that, rather than like sort of at a desk or sitting across the table from each other. The one thing I would say is I would recommend filming any podcast with 2 cameras at a minimum, but 3 is really kind of ideal, I think. If you have a 2-person podcast, if you have 3 cameras filming, this is assuming that the cameras are just set up and you don't have anybody physically operating the cameras. That way you can have one camera that is a what we call a 2-shot, right? Which is both people who are participating in the podcast, and then one camera as a single for the host and one camera as a single for the guest. And that gives you a lot of editing options and the ability to sort of cut back and forth between the cameras as you sort of put the video together. Ultimately, the other thing too that I would recommend, and this is something I always encourage folks to do, I think it works really well, is do not over edit your podcast. Don't over edit the content. You're doing two things when you do that. One, you're creating more work for yourself, and two, you're making it feel less and less authentic to your audience. So leave in the ums, the uhs, the ahs, the things that make us, some of them, leave some of them in. Dominick's shaking his head, which is why I responded that way. But leave some of those things in. If somebody stumbles or mispronounces a word and then you figure out how to correct it, or you have to look something up, leave it in, right? Because it will give the audience the opportunity to identify with, to empathize with, to see themselves in you and your guests on the podcast. And that will make them much more likely to keep coming back to listen more, right? Whenever we can self-identify with the content we're consuming, we're much more likely to consume it again and again, to keep coming back for more. So that would be sort of the couple of things I would definitely recommend. Is I would say 3 cameras would be ideal if you're doing a standard interview. Make sure the tone of the visual tone suits the tone of the content, and don't edit your podcast too much. Leave in some of the mistakes, leave in some of the hiccups and the human foibles, the idiosyncratic language, because that makes it relatable. It makes it human. And it gives your audience the opportunity to self-identify with the people you have on the show and to keep coming back for more. So I hope that helps.
Oh, yeah, super helpful. I mean, I'm not going to be in the luxury position of having physical guests because most of my guests are going to be virtual. So we will both be kind of, in that split screen arrangement, I guess, where you just have two people speaking into their PC cameras or whatever they're using. So I'm going to have to get creative on the visual too. So because I do find myself when I'm watching videos of podcasts, it kind of gets a little tiresome if it's just the two people split on the screen, the host and the guest, and they're just talking at each other. Of course, it's interesting to watch the people, but the setup is quite repetitive if you watch a lot of those kinds of video casts. So trying to get some creativity into that will be one of my challenges.
Yeah, and I think there's like a couple of quick things. If that's the setup you're dealing with, I would say if whenever you can, have them record on their end as well. So you're not just recording via Zoom or whatever sort of streaming service you're using to set up the interview, but if they're actually recording on their computer as well, you should be able to get a full size image from them at the highest possible quality. And if you do that, then in the editing of the podcast, when you sort of whatever editing software you use, it can be very rudimentary, but you'll be able to actually bring them up full screen more easily and not just have the split screen the entire time. So that gives a little bit of like visual interest to what you're doing. And then the other thing too is I would say whenever you can, schedule a little bit 15 minutes before you're going to start recording the podcast. If you've got a producer that you're working with, so you can get everybody on the call together and you can have them check out your guest setup and make sure that they're set up well. And if you want to reach out, I'll help you put together some like best practices or a quick doc you can send them to say like, hey, this is kind of how you should have your camera set up so that you look the best you can look when we get on to do the interview. If that's of any use to you, I'm happy to do that.
Hugely helpful, Tom. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that would be great. So I'll just DM you on that. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
My pleasure.
Nashater, and thank you, Tom. I will have to say, Tom sounds quite intelligent when he's talking about that. We might rebrand with the smartest guy in the room. Okay, we are going to meet our friend. Go on, Tom.
I was just going to push back and say there's no chance I'm the smartest guy in the room. Not even going to accept that.
From now on, everybody needs to show SAT scores to get in this room. Send them to me. I'll look at them and decide who who we will talk to each week. Okay, we are going to meet Julie Rock, our friend Julie Rock. And Julie Rock, let me clarify, Julie, we are talking about asking for help. We've been talking about people that fall in love with views. We just went off and we're talking a little podcast tips and camera work because we do that kind of thing. Let me tell you about Julie Rock because I haven't read a bio yet today, and Julie's my friend. So here we go. View full profile. When I used to think, like when I was in school, and like everybody's embarrassed of reading aloud in school and stuff like that. Then I just used to start like reading real loud and like really trying to put on a show with it. Then all of a sudden I didn't mind it. Okay, Julie Rock, podcast host of Stay on Course, Ingredients for Success, ICF leadership coach, TEDx speaker and author, singer, songwriter. I did not know this. So you learn a lot about creative and faith-driven MBTI facilitator. My purpose is to evolve the existing story of professionals wasting their lives in careers they hate because they're following someone else's dream and not their heart. Damn, Julie, why didn't I read this before? Okay, Julie Rock, you want to share a tip, ask a question? What do you got?
Hey everyone, thank you. And I love the room. I always try to come in here and Tom is the real deal. I met Tom. We had a one-on-one and he really did help me think about, how to set up my cameras and things like that. So I do appreciate you. And Dominick, I need to have a call with you at some point just to meet you in person. But yeah, thanks guys. I just, you know what? I do love the idea of offering help, and I try to spend some time here on Clubhouse doing that. We Julie and I don't know why she's not up here, but we interviewed Dan Martell the other day talking about time management, and which leads me to my question because um I was on Club Deck last week when we did this room, and it was first of all, it's very hard to navigate Club Deck when the phone is just so much easier. But I did want to have my microphone on, and I'm just wondering how you guys like broadcast live from Clubhouse to LinkedIn and all these other things. And I noticed there's a program that's linked to Club Deck, and you can just go in and it like live streams everywhere. And I'm wondering if that's what you guys use, or if you can give us any tips and tricks on how to do that.
Dominick, you want to handle that one?
Yeah. Here's what I do. Every week, I set up the room via Clubhouse, and then I do nothing else. And Tom sets everything else up, so I know nothing, but I fall on Tom for all the assistance. Go on, Tom.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so I just Dominick was laughing and pointing at me, so I had to I had to toss that one at him for anybody who's watching the live stream. But yeah, so here's how we do it very simply. And actually Jason 72 the architect who was here earlier commented on Dominick's YouTube channel asking the same thing earlier today, and I replied to him there. So it's pretty straightforward. I'll explain it as simply as I can. And I'm happy to offline go into detail, Julia, and explain to you kind of all the ins and outs of how it works. But the basics are that I use Club Deck on my desktop. I use a free software called OBS, where I use that to create a screen grab of that's why you can see on the live stream, you can see the hand holding the phone. Basically, that's just a cutout. And then I have a screen grab of Club Deck behind that. So you can see the sort of Clubhouse screen essentially on the phone. And then I send that into a live stream via Restream that also has my camera and Dominick's camera built in as well. And then Restream has the functionality built into it to simultaneously live stream to multiple platforms, which is how we're able to live stream on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Twitch and all of those places at the same time. So hopefully that answers the question without getting too highly technical.
Yeah, it does. So Restream looked like the one that was attached in Club Deck, and it just kind of came up. What, which one do you use? Do you use the free version or you pay for it?
Yeah, no, I pay for it because in paying for it, it gives us the ability to pair channels. So by paying for it, we're able to broadcast not only on my YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, etc., but also Dominick's YouTube and Facebook
Oh,
simultaneously. So we have our own channels, and that's so we broadcast on our own channel simultaneously. We don't have channels for not the smartest guys in the room. Maybe we should, but as the title says, we're not the smartest guys in the room. So that's not how we did it. We had existing channels, and we figured why not leverage those. So yeah, so that's how we do it.
okay. One more question, and then I will stop here. When you're recording your podcast, then are you using the Restream platform or another platform if you're doing pre-recorded?
Yeah, when I record, so personally, when I'm relaunching my podcast, Something Good, and if anybody is interested in being a guest host on Something Good, I don't interview people because I spent like 15 years of my life professionally interviewing people on television shows, and so I wanted to do something different for a podcast. So I mean it when I say guest host. I basically hand you the mic. You get 10-15 minutes to talk about the what and why of something that you think is good. And essentially, when I record that, the way I do it is via Restream, because it enables me to both get high quality video and audio recordings, and actually it'll split the tracks for me. So I can do
Oh,
audio only, or I can do video with audio. And it gives me split audio tracks. So it'll actually separate my audio from the guest host's audio as well,
okay.
in separate recordings.
And it's like way better than Zoom, I assume. I hope. Or what do you
Yeah,
think?
it's because it's specifically built for streaming video in a sort of broadcast format, as
Okay.
opposed to Zoom, which is built for video conferencing, where less of a premium is put on quality. So like if you look at our live stream, the quality is pretty high. Everything that's streaming from my end is streaming in full HD. And I believe Dominick is either full HD or 720. Yeah, it's a much higher quality than you'll get from Zoom. The compression is also optimized to maintain the video quality.
Okay. Very cool. And just for you guys, I think you guys are the smartest guys in the room. Thank you.
I
We'll
guess I
take
got to
it.
practice what I was preaching earlier and saying I got to be better about accepting compliments. So instead of denying that or pushing back, I have to just say thank you.
Yes, Julie, you're probably right. Thank you. Yeah, that's. Hey, Tom, since we're live streaming and I want to show you anybody that if they stick around, then you can wrap us up because I see nobody there. I am wearing the coolest shirt today, and I want to show. I got a shirt for Christmas. It says "Big Worm Ice Cream Los Angeles. What you want?" So I would like to show show the Big Worm shirt on camera if you want, and show it like you said. We could do weird stuff like that. So come on, go full screen
Let's
and let
see a
me
big
show Big
worm.
Big. You got it. Okay. See, some people are probably like, "What?
Oh, I
Who is
totally
Big?"
get the reference.
Okay, so let's go full screen, and I'm going to stand here and show you a Big Worm or readjust my camera. So how to go on here? Let's see here. Big. Okay, let's see. Big Worm. Can we see it? Let's see here. Big Worm. Are we on? Big Worms. Big Worms ice cream truck. See, now that's how you end a podcast. That's how you end a Clubhouse. You show Big Worms ice cream truck on the live stream.
I love
And
it.
on that note, Tom, you take us and wrap us up. I got nothing more. I'm going to my Big Worm shirt. That's all I have left.
I
That's
love it.
all I
I
have
love
left.
it. I love it. So yeah, I think we talked about a variety of things today, which is normal for us. one of my favorite things about this room every week is that you never know where the conversation is going to go. We try not to overproduce it. We try not to steer too forcefully, because I think it's important that you allow conversations to evolve. It's one of the reasons why we don't, this room is not a pitch fest. As John Jay was talking about earlier, one of the reasons that he keeps coming back week after week is because we do not do that. We try to create something that is different, that is inclusive, encouraging, inspirational, and hopefully insightful once in a while here on Clubhouse and across the internet through all of our live streaming. One of these days, you and I, Dom, are actually going to sit down and record an opening so we can finally turn this into a podcast, which we've been talking about doing for, I don't know, 4 months now, probably. And we just have to get our SHIT together and actually do it. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here as always. First and foremost, this room would not exist, would not be what it is if it wasn't for the amazing support that we get from the folks that come in here regularly and the fantastic contributions we get from folks that are new to the room as well. We really appreciate all of you. And I will just leave everybody with this. Ask for help, offer help, help each other. We're all better off if we give each other a hand when we need it. So don't be afraid to ask for help and never hesitate to offer help. It is always a good idea. So thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate you, Dom, for running the room as only you can. Thanks, buddy. And we will see you guys next week with Not the Smartest Guys in the Room, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And looking forward to it. See you guys then. Everybody have a great week. Happy hump day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.